So welcome everyone and happy Friday. My name is Sierra Ladroma. I'm the project manager for the Iowa Center's Women's Business Center. The Iowa Center's Women's Business Center is funded in part through a cooperative agreement with the U.S. Small Business Administration. You will all receive a follow-up email after this event. It will include an attendee form and an event survey. Please help us by completing both of these forms. This information allows us to continue providing free educational programming for small business owners in Iowa. Throughout the webinar, feel free to chat with us, use the chat option to ask questions or add comments. Today's story is with Jenny Quiner, who founded Dogpatch Urban Gardens located here in Des Moines in 2015 with the help of her husband, Eric. The main reasons for starting the farm were to promote health and nutrition, enhance the community, environmental conservation, as well as to instill family values with their sons. Jenny, we are so excited, thankful to have you join us today.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, of course. So first thing is, what is Dogpatch Urban Gardens?
Yeah, so we're an urban farm. We're located at 5085 Meredith Drive. So we're just north of Beaverdale and south of Johnston. If you know where like Skate North or Skate Land is, we're not far from there. I've been in operation for 5 years. Our main focus is on crops and specifically organically grown salad greens. That's kind of our main market, and we could kind of geek out on the farming side as to why I grow that, but I don't know if that's really what people are into or not, but we are pretty specific with the crops that we grow. And so kind of our main sales avenues are, we have an on-site farm stand. We used to sell at the Beaverdale Farmers Market, no longer do that. We were accepted to be vendors this year at the downtown farmers market. Now that's been put on hold due to COVID. We sell to restaurants, and we also have an on-site Airbnb. So we call it our urban farm stay, which is part of the,
that. That's awesome.
Yep. So that's part of the business. What else goes on? Those are the main things. And then we just started to add a line of salad dressings, and I make elderberry syrup because we do have a commercial kitchen on site as well too.
That's awesome. So let's start with, how did you get started? Like, we had just had a conversation about you were a teacher prior to Doug, and what happened? What were some of the moments that led up to the thought of, you know what, I'm just gonna start my own business?
Yeah, so I taught at Dowling Catholic High School for 6 years. I'm an alumni there, and I truly loved it. It was a great fit for me. I taught science there. But in the 6 years teaching, I had my 3 little boys, and you know, that just changes life. And it got to the point where when you start to crunch the numbers and you think about childcare, you know, it was like, why am I working? I'm just spending all my money so my kids can go to daycare. So I kind of was like feeling this pull in a different direction, and I didn't feel like my heart was in teaching as much as I wanted it to be. But I never grew up on a farm. And when this idea of urban farming emerged, people looked at me like, what are you talking about? You know, like, this isn't something that you've talked about your whole life. I mean, I've always loved being outdoors. I've always loved science. I love growing things. But kind of what happened is, so we live in the neighborhood where the farm is, but we live 2 blocks away from the farm. The neighborhood is known as the Dogpatch. So what happened was, where our farm is, that property went up for sale by owner, and we drove by it daily. My husband sells real estate. He also flips homes. So he saw this opportunity as like, well, you know, let's buy this house. And I saw the opportunity of, well, let's buy this land. And so we kind of got our creative juices flowing. And the idea of urban farming emerged from that property just kind of going up for sale. And then I started to really just geek out on it, find some mentors, and realize that there could be a business opportunity in that. So we just kind of dove in head first. Not necessarily what I would recommend people doing. I would say, hey, work on a farm, get that experience, but we didn't, but it worked out for us.
Yeah, that's awesome. So you had mentioned before that you feel now that you're really running a business. And before it was learning, it was figuring out what is right, what maybe lessons. So I guess explain or share what that was like for you, and how things are so different now from day one or year one to
Mhm.
year 5.
Yeah, so I mean, you can look at it in a couple different aspects. Like you can look at it in I was learning how to farm and grow crops, which is kind of one key side of the business. But I think when you anymore, I don't really call myself a farmer. I call myself an entrepreneur because it's like, okay, sure, you can grow crops, but if you can't make any money selling them and getting them to the hands of the customer, then what's the point of growing the crops? So when I think about when we started the business, I had no business background at all. And year one, I wasn't even keeping track of like money in, money out. You know, I was just like pulling things out of the ground and selling them at the farmer's market. And luckily, very luckily, my husband is very business minded. And he was like, you have to keep data, you have to track records, which in hindsight, it's almost comical. You know, like how am I trying to run a business and I don't even know my cash flow and that sort of thing. So like just this year I hired a bookkeeper and it's like my mind is blown how much life is easier, you know, and it's just like, but it takes, you kind of have to live and learn. At least I did kind of the hard way. But even like for example, this bookkeeper, when COVID hit and I started to apply for these grants and stuff, relief funds, it was so easy because I had all my finances in place and all the applications. It was like, oh, here's my P&L from this year, from last year. If I didn't have my bookkeeper, I would have been scrambling just to put that stuff together. So I'm kind of going on a tangent here, but it's like, I didn't know what I didn't know, you know, and as I get more into a business, I realize there's lots of key metrics that you need. You know, you need to have your dashboard that are important metrics for whatever business you have that you need to track and look at constantly, honestly.
Yeah, I think that I think that's almost a lot of the similar journeys of entrepreneurs is you don't realize what you need until it happens.
Mm-hmm.
So with COVID-19, how have you pivoted?
Yeah. So in the past, we have an on-site farm stand. It's almost like a locally sourced grocery store where people come shop in our facility. And we decided we didn't want to have people in our store just for health and safety reasons. And so we basically took our in-person store and made it into an online store. So we shifted everything from retail in person to everything online. And what we did is we like opened the cart Saturday through Wednesday, then we close it, we get our orders together, and then we do contactless pickup on Saturday mornings. And that has gone fantastic. When we launched it, we figured we'd do it for like a month or two and then get the store opened up. But people still do it. People still want the contactless pickup. So that's still rocking. But we started to get, I wouldn't say pressured, but people wanted to come shop and like see the food, not buy it online, have to plan ahead. So what we did then is we opened up a sweet corn stand, and that's still going on now. The church parking lot across the street from the farm, we're setting up there. We got permission from them. And so it's an outdoor setting. We just have, it's almost like a mini farmer's market of our stuff. And so we have set that up daily now too. So we're able to facilitate people that just want to stop by and get their hands on things and shop, or we're able to facilitate people that want to have more distancing and be a little safer with their food shopping.
You know, that's really cool. It's almost as if COVID has opened different opportunities for businesses.
Mm-hmm.
Where in the future, I don't know if you plan to continue doing your online marketplace and your in person.
Yeah, I think where we're at now, it's opened our eyes to, we'll probably stick to the online because what's really nice is we don't sit on inventory. We know what sells for the week. And so we only harvest or we only order from our other producers for that week. Because when we had the farm stand, you know, we'd have a back stock of inventory. We'd have to pay employees to sit and work with customers. And so we're finding the online store to be more profitable in that regards. Now there's more behind the scene logistics. But now that I'm figuring out how that works, I'm to the point where I'll be able to hire someone to do that for me. But when I first launched, I didn't even know what I was doing. So I couldn't hire anyone yet. But now we're getting kind of the operating procedures in place. So I'll be able to kind of have someone else run what I'm doing right now.
Yeah. So was the online marketplace, was that something where it just seemed more stressful than it actually was?
It's just the daunting idea that it's like, oh, this is something new, and you kind of have to figure it out as you go. But luckily, our customers are our biggest fans, and they knew like, okay, there's going to be some rocky roads here, or we may screw up an order. But I was very kind of open with them, like, we're doing this, give us some grace as we figure it out. And now it's really smooth.
Yeah. And I think, so we just recently had a event focused on community.
Mhm.
And I think communities for small business owners are just really showing up, and people are prioritizing to shop local. And I love that. Following your social media pages, it's just, you can see the interactions that you have on there. So I think that's really cool that you are having an online marketplace. You're focusing on how to still show up even though we can't see each other in person. So that's really great.
Yep.
So why did you choose urban farming? Like, why would you have a farm or a business in the city?
Well, first of all, like I said, the neighborhood's known as the Dog Patch, and this is where my family and I live, and we don't want to leave. Like, we love where we're at. It's an unincorporated neighborhood, so we're actually part of Polk County rather than the city of Des Moines. But it's got this rural feel, but you're basically in the city, and we love it. And so what really appealed to us with urban farming is you can have a smaller land base, but you can reach so many more customers. Because if you think about people that are rural and have acres upon acres, they can grow anywhere and everywhere, but they have to travel, maybe up to 2 hours just to get to a farmer's market. And so our model wouldn't work in a rural setting. Like, we couldn't have a farm stand because people just wouldn't show up. But what we can offer is the convenience factor. And so that was kind of the appeal with urban, is population density. We're able to reach a lot of people in a small area.
That's a great idea. I guess I've never thought of that. If you're
Mhm.
bringing your business to the people, that makes
Yeah,
sense.
exactly. Yep.
So what resources have you used, or professional development or personal development have you gone through
Mhm.
to support you and your business?
The most impactful one has been the Goldman Sachs 10,000 Small Business course. And I actually just finished that up this spring. I was in the thick of the course when COVID hit. So we were kind of a very interesting cohort, because we went from expanding on our growth opportunities to surviving through COVID. So our cohort didn't actually like finish the class the way you would expect us to, but yet we were able to work together with our business advisors and figure out how to get funding, figure out how to navigate the waters of COVID. So honestly, it was like ideal timing to be in that class. But I would recommend that class to any small business owner. I mean, it's essentially you're getting a master's of business on your business. It's not like this. I would say it's more practice versus theory, which I truly loved. It was a 3-month, very intensive program, all free. So I can't sing its praises enough.
Yeah. Have you gone into any other trainings or any other just support systems to help you?
Yeah, I took venture school through the University of Iowa. And that was a fantastic one too. What I loved about that is you do a deep dive into your customer base. So when I left that class, I knew who my ideal customers were. And that just opened my eyes to who I thought was going to buy our product to actually who does. And that enables me to run better marketing and those sorts of things to reach the right clientele.
Yeah,
So that was a great one as well.
that's cool. So
Mhm.
with your team, how many people are on your team for Dogpatch?
Yeah, so I've got one kind of main farmer. His name's Steven, and we hired him this year full time, with the goal that he's pretty much going to run the farming operations as years go on. That's going to be kind of his gig. I hired a woman that started part time this year to kind of run our wash pack, so washing and packaging all the produce. People don't realize that a lot of farming is not actually in the field, but it's washing and getting vegetables ready for the consumer. So I hired her part-time, and now she's working full-time because she's a rock star and doing a great job. She's actually going to college in a few weeks though, so we're gonna ride out with how long we can with her for sure. And then we met a couple. So one interesting thing about COVID is our workforce for our farm has been awesome because, for example, Morgan, who's going to college, she was in the Peace Corps in Senegal, sent her home, and she didn't have anything to do. So she reached out to me. We have two people running our corn stand right now that are actually in the film industry, and they're normally based in New York, but they're not working right now. So came back to Des Moines and reached out to me. So we have our team this year is amazing. And we also have a few people that help on Saturday mornings to just fill orders for online pickup.
Were they tied to you before COVID, or did
No.
they just reach out?
No, so the couple that's helping with our sweet corn stand, he just reached out and he's like, I'm here, I don't have anything to do. What can we do? We want to help. And so we hired them, not even really knowing them, and they've been amazing. So we've really had a great talent pool because people are out of work right now.
That's actually so incredible to hear that people can just reach out to a business owner and just say, how can I help?
Mm-hmm. And quite frankly, what I have discovered, and this kind of goes against it, but like anytime now I have a job opening, in the past, it's always just been like word of mouth or a friend or something like that. And now I've found value in advertising the job because there's actually a lot of talented people out there. But if you don't promote that you're hiring, you'll never find those people. So with the people running our sweet corn stand, that goes against that. But like with Morgan, who was in the Peace Corps, I would have never connected with her if I didn't advertise for the job.
Yeah. So, okay, before you had this rock star team, was it just you and Eric?
Well, no. So last year I had a great team as well. So I had a woman named Jill who moved here from St. Louis to basically learn urban farming, and now she has an urban farm in St. Louis.
Oh, wow.
And then I had Kyle, who moved here from a farm in Arizona to work for me, and now he has an urban farm in Iowa City. So coincidentally, we've kind of become this incubator farm for other farmers, which is great, but it's also like, I want people to stay longer.
Right.
I don't want to train you for a season. But I mean, like, I'm totally happy that they're doing their thing and rocking it in their communities. And actually, Eric doesn't do any of the farm work. He does behind the scenes, like helps with infrastructure, and he's a key part of the farm, but he has a full-time job in real estate. So when it comes to seeding and harvesting, that's not his gig at all.
Yeah. So do you ever have moments where you're just like, look at what we have?
You know what?
What happened?
It's sometimes you just have to step back and do that. So we this past Sunday hosted a farm to table dinner, and we launched these events last year. We had to cancel 2 this year because of COVID, but we felt ready to do it on last Sunday. It was all outdoors. People bought tickets by the table, and so you basically came with your table and you could socially distance. And
Was it at the farm?
It was at the farm. Yep. And so we had Chef Jacob DeMars from RI Restaurant. He did a 5-course meal. It was fantastic. When we get to host events and bring people to the farm, it makes us step back and be like, look what we did. We fed this great meal to 41 people. It was a high-end dinner, and you're able to step back and embrace it. But really, when you're in the thick of the day-to-day, sometimes that can be lost in the weeds.
Mm-hmm. That's so cool. I think that is something that I wish every entrepreneur would do daily, weekly, monthly, whenever they need it, honestly, is to just recognize how far you've come. Whether it's that first sale or getting that brick and mortar or just creating a team. So what advice would you give your day one self and maybe your like future self, I guess, knowing what you know right now?
Yeah, I kind of already mentioned this, and we've already dove into this, but have a strong crew. You're going to have your talents and you're going to have your specialties, but you can't do it all and you shouldn't expect to do it all. So for example, with me hiring a bookkeeper, yes, it costs more money, but it is such a weight off my shoulders. And actually, the way I look at it, I'm saving money now because at the year end, when I would give all my documents to my accountant and he'd look at it and be like, what am I looking at? And he'd spend hours organizing it at like, $150 an hour. Where now I have a bookkeeper at $40 an hour. And when tax season comes, it'll all be ready to roll and she'll just give it to him. So even though I'm spending more money up front, I might actually be saving money. So that's just kind of one example there. So definitely have a crew, figure out what you need, and don't be afraid to hire people. It can be hard when you're starting, but it's necessary.
Yeah, I think entrepreneurs wear so many hats when it comes to running their business. But from what I hear, once you can, hire out,
get
that help. So then that way you can really focus on what you want to do and what you like to do.
Yeah, and I'm sure people have heard this before, but you want to work on your business, not in your business. And it's something that I feel like as an entrepreneur, you hear quite a bit, but it is very true. So if I'm spending my time putting lettuce in bags, that's not the best use of me being able to grow the business. So I hired someone to do that, and now I'm able to expand and work on product development for our new salad dressings. So it's opening up my time, but also my headspace to do other things that will add value to the business.
Yeah. So what kind of collaborations and partnerships do you have with other businesses? Do you sell other business products?
Yeah. Oh yeah. So in our store, even in our online store, so we have honey, we have jam, we have meat, we have eggs, basically anything that is local, fresh, grown in a way that we align with, we will sell their products. So we just added teas. So yes, we are very diverse. I like to describe it as a locally sourced grocery store.
Yeah.
And then with our farm to table dinners, we're doing a lot of collaborations with chefs and local restaurants, because we do sell to quite a few restaurants. So last year, our dinner series, we had Sean from Proof, and he's now at St. Kilda Collective. We had Ken from St. Kilda. We had Chef Lynn from Table 128. I'm missing, Joe from Harbinger came out. And then we had Jacob DeMars from RI. Our next one will be Aaron Holt. He used to be at Roca. And then our final one will be Brett from the Cheese Bar this year. So we're definitely connecting with our tribe and our chefs. Yeah. There's lots of collaboration that goes on in our business.
So what's the best way to sign up for those farm to table events?
Yeah, it's funny you asked. I'm actually launching our next one, which will be September 13th. I'm working on that. Our email to our customers goes out tomorrow morning, and that will launch the ticket sales for that next dinner.
Okay.
So, and honestly, if you go to our website, there's a section for farm stand with fork dinners, but the tickets technically aren't available yet, but they will be starting tomorrow.
That's awesome. I'm excited for that.
Yeah.
So when it comes to collaborating and selling these other products from other businesses, how do you select? How do you identify who to go with and maybe say no at that moment?
Yeah, well, a lot of it now comes down to I've been doing this for 5 years, and I'm pretty engulfed in the local food scene. So it's not a huge world. So I pretty much know most of our other producers personally, whether that I used to be on the board of the Iowa Food Co-op, and that was a great way for me to connect with other people. And I've had people reach out, and I can just, I look at professional, like how are they going to show up? How's the pricing? Do they understand fresh sheets and those sorts of things? So I want to work with people that are business people as well, that deliver on time, that follow through. If I ordered, 50 pounds of green beans and the day they're to be ordered, they're like, oh, we only have 12 pounds. I'm sorry. Like those sorts of things, I remember, and I will probably find green beans from a different grower.
Yeah.
But if 5 days before you're like, hey, we have a pest issue, we're going to be short on the green beans, great. It's all about communication and establishing those connections with whoever you're working with.
Yeah. So that actually brings up a good question. Has that happened to you where you've had to contact a partner and say, I'm so sorry, something has happened?
Mm-hmm.
Uh, and then if so, what was the process? What did you do?
Yeah, so I would say a classic example is with my restaurants. So most of my restaurants have like standing orders weekly for how much salad greens they want. There, about a month ago, it was incredibly hot and it just really stunted our greens. And I just knew we were going to be short. So I personally reached out to my restaurants. I told them we were going to be short. Here's why. And they totally got it, and it was like I gave them time to source elsewhere. I communicated with them and it's all good. And that's kind of part of the business. They understand that Mother Nature has a big part in my product and in my world. And I work with chefs that understand that. If they're not going to jive with that, then they're not the right customer for me either.
Yeah. Okay. So I guess that all goes back to community, honestly,
Mm-hmm.
and
Yep.
finding community that brings value to you personally and professionally, as well as returning that to them.
Mm-hmm.
Can you share in your words why community is so important for a small business?
I mean, running a business, it's all about your relationships. And I mean, when we started the farm, our slogan was cultivating community, because it brings so much value to what you're doing. Because when you have buy-in from other people, then they're going to be your biggest fans, and they're going to tell other people, and it just kind of snowballs into this fantastic thing. And quite frankly, when we built the farm, the Dogpatch neighborhood has the name Dogpatch has a negative connotation, and we live here, we love it, but the neighborhood used to be known for two reasons, and it was either you were test driving a car from the Merle Hay Auto Mile and you drive through our neighborhood, or you were there to buy drugs. And now the neighborhood, when people say Dogpatch, it's like, oh, is that where that farm is? And we have people that sell homes in the neighborhood, and that's like part of their listing is local access to food. And so it's been really neat to see this positive spin on our community now. And I think it's only getting better. And the more recognition we get, we're beautifying an area, and we're pretty proud of that.
That's awesome. That's incredible to be part of that, even when when you're not really the one, like it's not the number one focus.
Mm-hmm.
Honestly, and it just continues to grow naturally,
Yep.
building community, and it always just goes back to that. So we have small business owners on the call, as well as whoever is going to watch this, honestly, in the future. So what advice would you give to someone who is just thinking about starting a business, or
Mm-hmm.
just has maybe that idea, but maybe more hesitancy than moving forward?
Oh, that's tricky because there's so many things that pop into my head. So, first of all, do your research. If I'm trying to think of a good example here, but like for in farming, for example. Okay, so let's say I'm like, when I would do my research, I'd walk through the farmers markets and see what farmers were selling and see what they'd start with on their table, and when the day was over, what was left. And I could be like, oh, there's no okra here. So there's a market for okra that farmers haven't tapped into. But then it's like, well, no, there's probably no okra here because consumers don't buy it. And so there's a reason that farmers don't grow it. So, I think just because you have an idea and it's not out in the world yet, there might be a reason that it's not out in the world. And so I think just doing your research ahead of time to really see if the demand is there from your customer. And you may not know exactly who your customer is. Like, for example, I talked about Venture School, how we did a bunch of customer discovery. When we started the farm, we thought this was going to be like the millennial hotspot. Like, we thought that generation was going to be there and singing our praises. And frankly, our key market are retired women in their mid 60s that grew up in a farm and can no longer grow food.
Oh,
So
wow.
yeah, and we love them. They're amazing customers for us, but things are going to change. And so it's important to just understand who you're trying to sell to.
Hmm. So what other changes have you experienced like that where you're like, I didn't think that this would happen, but here we are and we don't hate it.
Yeah, well, one is just we keep expanding our land space. So, we started when we bought the property. Our main property is 1 acre in size, but we have an Airbnb, we have the farm stand. So really, we're only able to grow on a fourth of an acre. And then we have been able now to expand to another woman's property. So now we've doubled our size, and so it's exciting to know that the demand is there, and so we're continuing to get bigger. It's unique because like a lot of people will say, hey, do you want to grow on my property? And so now we're kind of to the point where we need to make sure it's the right fit for us with our
Hmm.
expansion.
Yeah.
Um, Another kind of shift we did was when we first bought the property, it was a rental property, the house. And then a few years in, we saw the opportunity to run it as an Airbnb. And that's what we're doing now. And that's been a good boost for the business too.
Yeah. I had no idea about the Airbnb. That's
Hmm.
incredible. That's awesome.
Yeah. Well, and it's like a 1920s farmhouse. It has ties to the Meredith family that used to be their farmland. So it's got neat history to it. And it's something different because people get to stay on a farm in an urban area. So it
Mhm.
sets us apart in the Airbnb world.
Yeah. It's like a little vacation spot.
Hmm. Yeah. Well, and that's been tricky with COVID. Gosh, March, April, and May, we basically had everyone cancel just because people weren't traveling.
Yeah.
But now it's picking back up again.
That's awesome. I'm happy for you. Okay, so let's talk about an online presence. So you
Hmm.
have an online marketplace, you have your social media platforms. Have you come across like a comment or a message or an inbox that wasn't positive, that kind of fought back a little bit of what you were doing or against, just someone who didn't agree?
Yeah.
How would you handle that?
Yeah, I mean, you're gonna have the naysayers, and honestly, I mean, knock on wood, it's not been a huge issue for us. Um, but what jumps into my mind is we had some Airbnb guests that were like the worst you can imagine, and then they gave us like 1-star reviews, and just it was bad. And then they decided to go onto Google and give our whole business a 1 star, and they just really snowballed into this like real thorn in our side. And
Hmm.
someone like that, because I met him and through the Airbnb, I just avoided and ignored. I
Yeah.
wasn't going to engage in that discussion. But if it's someone who is actually like, hey, I bought a tomato and it was not good, and those sorts of things, all you can do is be real and talk to them. And most of the time, you just work through it with the customer. But
Okay.
I would say, social media and those sorts of things, uh, most of the people that are engaging are big fans and not going to give us bad comments. But if they do happen, if it's appropriate to engage and respond, I will. But sometimes the best thing to do is just, they're just trying to pick a fight. And so I'll just leave it be.
Yeah. Yeah, I support that. I agree with all that. So what are you looking forward to? What's next?
Well, so previously the farm stand, it's only been seasonal. So it was like, May through Thanksgiving.
Hmm.
But we did just get our building air conditioned and heated. So now we have the ability to potentially run year round. And with COVID not going away and the potential for the winter being worse, we see the demand for the online store to pick up in the winter. So we have prepped and now we're ready to facilitate that. So I'm excited to be able to offer more products to our customers throughout the year. I'm also just excited about our salad dressings and our elderberry syrup. So
Yeah.
these are products that we are kind of just diving into because of our commercial kitchen space. We saw the opportunity to use that. And this will open up our markets to get us out of, just the seasonality of what a farm can grow to where we can distribute year round to grocers and other sales avenues as well.
So how do you go about how do you go about getting your products on other people's shelves?
Yep. So elderberry, for example. So the elderberry syrup, we've been making that for about roughly 2 years. And most of our sales have been direct to consumer. We actually have it in a food safety lab right now. It's getting tested to see what the shelf life is and all these logistics so that we'll be able to present to grocers and have all the required documentation for that. So we haven't done a whole lot of work in larger grocers yet, but we're kind of ramping up to get to that point. But a lot of, like, we sell to local chiropractors and other smaller businesses, and most of that has just kind of been this organic reach where they come to us. But once I'm ready for more larger mass production, we'll kind of make like a sales sheet, and it'll be more of a presentation that I'm using to get into those bigger stores. But it'll be new to me.
Yeah, I think it's excellent how social media and just the followers can get you the businesses, and people especially love elderberry syrup. It's such a thing right now where I had a friend contact me and say, hey, can you just pick up some elderberry syrup for me? And I'm like, yeah, I guess. And I was like, well, where can I go for that? And they're like, oh, just look on this person's story. And so it's incredible to be able to just sell on your social media pages, honestly.
Yeah, definitely. And we're very locally based, and so that works really well. You know, if we were more of a regional company, that might be a different story.
Yeah. Are you, if you had no cap with a future for Dog Patch Urban Gardens, where would you see yourself if there was just no limit, honestly?
Yeah, so I think a big pipe dream would be, there's some property near us that we'd like to own. And we could turn that into like a local mercantile with a little cafe, a coffee shop, a butcher, and more of just a hangout space around local food.
Please do that.
That would be it's going to take some time, incredible. But you know, it's on the radar.
Okay, so as far as mentors, so you've done the Goldman Sachs, you've done venture. Who do you go? So it almost seems like people go to you for help. Who do you go to seek advice or just guidance?
Yeah, so I've got a couple local farmers that, you know, when it comes to crops and those sorts of things, they're my go-to to get questions answered. Frankly, my husband is a great resource as well too. He's very business minded. So if I'm, you know, looking at my P&L and I have questions, he's a good source for me, which I'm blessed to have, because a lot of small business owners don't have that immediate person to throw things off of and those ideas. So I think that's very valuable to find that person. I also, one of my venture school professors, he was also a business advisor in Goldman Sachs class. He's been a good tool for me too.
That's awesome.
Yep. Yeah.
Let's say, what advice would you have for an entrepreneur who is looking for those mentors in whatever field they have? And yeah, they can look into classes and programs like Goldman, but what else, I guess, would you advise?
Yeah, I would say it's going to be industry specific. So like one of the first things I did was I joined Practical Farmers of Iowa, which is a great organization here that the goal is to just aid all different types of farmers. So you need to find your people, you know, in whatever field you're in. And that was super helpful for me, was just finding people in my industry. And then you can also, you know, join small networking groups, and you just have to find the fit that works for you. I have found that I don't have enough hours in the day to be active in most networking groups. It just doesn't work for me with my 3 little kids and so on. But if you have more time, those organizations are great as well too.
Yeah, awesome. That actually brought up something great. How do you balance all of your roles, honestly, on top of your entrepreneurial role?
I don't know. You know, I wish I had this like amazing way to answer that question, but summers in the Quiner household are just chaotic and can be stressful. But we also acknowledge and know that there's a seasonality to my work. And so winters do slow down. And so we tend to take our family vacations in the winters. And, we just adjust to our world and we make it work. It's not always ideal. Sometimes my kids are eating Chick-fil-A at 8 p.m. because I forgot to feed them dinner, and that's okay.
Yeah.
It's that's just life of running a business.
Yeah, absolutely. I think there's this appearance where if you say you're an entrepreneur and a business owner, then people are going to think, oh, then you just must be so successful and you must have all this money. But really, it comes down to, and I'm sure you can relate to maybe your 1, 2, or even now, that you are the one doing the work, honestly. And there are times where you had to do it all, plus all of your personal roles.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, we were blessed to be able to take a little vacation to Decorah a few weeks ago. And it was like I don't know, we were gone Wednesday through Saturday or something like that. And for us to be able to do that in the summer is pretty monumental. And that's because I have a great crew for me now. But I also couldn't, leave my cell phone at home or anything like that, because there's always things that you have to be ready for whatever comes up.
Right. So we talk a lot about self-care, and we actually try to have those conversations with clients, with entrepreneurs, and within our own team. So besides being able to take that vacation, which I love for you, what other ways do you care for yourself as an entrepreneur?
I have found that I have to get sleep. Like, some people can just burn the midnight oil, but I can't. So I'm in bed by 9 or 10 every night. And I'm a morning person, so I'm usually up by 5:30. But I have found that sleep is probably one of the most important things for me. Obviously, I work in a farm, so I have access to great food. And so that is a huge perk of just trying to stay healthy. Now, I'm not saying that I'm the best eater in the world, but just always having fresh food around is a great way to just take care of yourself too. I can munch on a carrot because I've got them everywhere around me.
Yeah.
So,
for real.
yeah. And frankly, like, my kids are to an age now where they're starting to ride bikes. So, my son Walter and I, we rode to Snooki's yesterday. So, just trying to make time for family and shut off the business is good for self-care, but it's easier said than done.
Yeah, absolutely. So as we begin to kind of wrap up here, remember, if anyone has any questions, just go ahead and drop it in the chat. So Jenny, you shared all the different ways that we can purchase and visit or drive by. What are some ways that others can support Dogpatch Urban Gardens without really having to purchase anything? So sharing posts or just feedback or anything like that.
Yeah. I mean, so we're active on Facebook and Instagram. Those are kind of our two social media platforms. We also have a very engaged email list where if you want to just you can learn about the farm, but you can also just learn how I interact with my customers. I would recommend joining our email list, and you can do that through the website. I stay in people's inbox. I send them an email once a week. And I try not to be salesy, but they just want to know what's happening on the farm and that sort of thing. And that has proven to be very valuable for us. So as a business owner, I jump on other people's email lists just to see what they're doing and how they're engaging their customers. So I would recommend getting on that.
Okay, that's actually really neat to hear, because there are some people who prefer just different avenues for customer contact. And it's nice to hear that an email works for you.
Yeah.
Is there a lot of pressure with having to get an email out or having to post, or just how present do you feel you need to be?
I would say I feel the most kind of pressure for the email because the email always goes out at 6 a.m. on Saturday morning, and that launches our online store for the week as well too. So it's all kind of crunch time to get that out there. And that I put the most time in thought into the email. And then when it comes to social media, that's usually just stuff that's happening in the field, and it's real easy to, pop a picture and post it up there. So I would say I'm more intentional with the email list. And I don't even know if I'd say I feel pressure, because I like creating the content. I think it's fun. I got to be able to set the time aside to do it.
I love that you said it's fun. A lot of people are just terrified. What is some advice that you have to creating that content, or maybe making it less stressful for people when they are thinking about whether it's going to be for post or email?
Well, so like with my email, I have a format that it's always the same. And so I'm not trying to like recreate the wheel every time. So, I generally have like what's happening at the farm, what's for sale through our kitchen this week, a recipe idea, and like some photos. So I stick to kind of this stock setup. So it just makes it easier to plug and chug. And then it's funny, like I'll look back on like who opened it and who clicked what and so on. And our readers want to hear about my family. They want to see pictures of my kids. So I have found to incorporate that stuff in. So I think once again, it's about understanding your customer and kind of catering to them. And it makes it kind of easier to create content that way too.
Yeah. So a couple final questions. How has life changed for you now that you are or have been an entrepreneur?
I'm busier. It's just quite frankly, it's hard to just shut off the business. That's not an option. I would also say that I'm happier. Now we had years 3 and 4 were actually, I'd say 2 and 3, we dealt with quite a few regulatory issues that were really stressful. It was hard on my family. It was hard on us financially, but we were able to overcome. So I'm not, saying that everything is rainbows. It's not always easy, but I'm doing what I want to do, and I feel like I'm having a positive impact on my community. So in my heart, I'm proud and happy of where we're at with the business.
That's incredible. So one last question for me. Have you tried a sales product or just an idea and it didn't go as well as you wanted? Have you been able to just say, okay, well, we're not going to do that anymore. We're just going to do this instead?
I'm sure I have. So, okay, here's a good example. So we have the kitchen space, and right now we have a chef who I haven't really talked about him, but he makes food for us weekly that we sell through our online store. So we always have fresh salads, we have hummus, we have chia pudding, and some of those kind of like staples. Before I hired him, I thought I could do it. And so I was the one running the kitchen, and I realized real fast that like, nope, I don't want to do it. I can't do it. There's not enough hours in my day. And here we are now. We've hired someone and he's rocking it. So I think that kind of, I know I'm maybe not totally answering your question, but it goes back to like, you can only do so much, and find your people that can make life easier for you.
Yeah, and it's almost like every opportunity, every event has an opportunity to just pivot. If it's not working, then figure it out or try another way.
Yeah, and it's okay to acknowledge, like, I thought this would go well. It's not. It's okay to be done with it. If it's not working, maybe it doesn't need to happen.
Yeah, exactly. Okay, well, my friend, thank you so much for your time. I'm excited to do some online shopping.
Perfect.
Have a wonderful
Yeah, thanks for
day.
having me. Thanks to everyone for listening in too.